Welcome to the December 7th meeting of the Murfreesboro City Council. Councilmember Sean Wright has our prayer, and then when Sean is done, we have Troop 441 from Christiana, led by Bob Martin, who the troop's going to come up to the podium, and if you will, after the prayer, if you'll stand, they're going to handle our Pledge of Allegiance. Sean.
Please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, please be with us as we go through our holiday season. Please let everyone know what this season is truly about. Be with those that are in your need, whether they're spoken or unspoken prayers, and be with communities all across the world that need your assistance now, Lord. It is in your name I pray. Amen.
Council members and those who are watching, it's always good that we get to recognize hard work and we get to recognize dedication, and that's something that we've had a lot of young men and young women who've come that we've been able to celebrate their accolades over the last year. Hopefully we'll also be able to celebrate Middle Tennessee Christian School won the state championship a week ago tonight, as a matter of fact, in Chattanooga, so we look forward to having them come in. But tonight we're getting to recognize the young men and young women who've excelled in golf this year across not only just Murfreesboro but in our entire county. So I want to make sure tonight when we recognize our student athletes, if you're a family member, if you will, stand up as well. I know growing up and playing golf, my mom would drop me off at the golf course at 8 o'clock every morning and then pick me up at 6 o'clock. I don't know if that was because she was trying to get rid of me or I couldn't drive when I was 10 and 12 years old. But I know that behind every story that we have where a student athlete has been successful, there's been a successful family who have made sure that they've had sacrifices, not only financially, but time to put their students in a position to where they have succeeded. So it's important that we recognize our families as well. So I'm going to introduce our male golfers first, and if you will, if you'll stand up. We have Michael Frenna from Oakland. Is Michael here? Okay. Drew Massengale, MTCS. I know Drew's here. Drew, is your family here as well? Y'all have to stand up too. Everybody gets to be embarrassed. Nate Pierce from Rockville. Nate? We went to school together. You have to stand up. You can be embarrassed too. Aiden Sinclair from Rockville as well. Aiden, congratulations. Family's here. And then a very special one, we have a council member's son, Ben Wade.
Yeah.
Ben's from Blackman. Kurt, you stand up too. I can say this, I've been able to play golf with Ben and with Kurt, and I definitely can say that you did not get your golfing ability from Kurt. So I want to recognize our lady golfers, but also I want to recognize a team that we've already been able to recognize. They couldn't be here at the same time, but then the individuals as well. We have Celia Meckling from Rockville. Is Celia here?
Yep, right here.
Did I say your name right? Yeah. Awesome. Congratulations. We also have a team from Providence Christian Academy who not only, they had a three-peat this year winning the state championship. So they've won 3 years in a row as a team. They set the all-time scoring record with TSSAA this year. But we have the entire team here. We have Isabella Johnson. We have Caroline Pardue. And we have Reagan Warren. All right, let's give all these student athletes a round of applause. I know y'all hear this all the time. I know your parents are proud of you, but there's a direct correlation to go back and show how hard that you've worked in these sports and then how successful you will be later on. And it brings perseverance. It brings the ability for you when things are not going well to be able to continue to work hard. And I know as you move forward, not only just in high school, but as you move forward to the later stages in your life, you're going to be successful. So y'all make us all proud. There's also one other person I want to recognize tonight. There's a lot of buzz yesterday. Middle Tennessee State University hired Derek Mason as their coach yesterday. I know that's something everyone was excited about. Also, it was pretty cool because you watched his press conference at 9 o'clock yesterday morning, and then last night we're sitting in our living room floor and we're watching Rick Insell and Matt Insell and his team. They had played the University of Tennessee 22 times and beat UT for the first time last night in Huntsville. So that was a pretty cool moment last night watching those young women have that win. So I know all of y'all would like to sit here and go through the 22 items that we have on our agenda, but we're going to dismiss y'all unless we won't think anything less if y'all walk up and go. So we'll give a few minutes to let the chambers. Thank y'all so much for coming.
They move fast. Yeah. Bye, Ben.
Hey, Ben, he played in the Mayor's Open this year, didn't he? All right, we'll move to our public comment on actionable agenda items. We have one person who has signed up. Mr. Baines, you know Mr. Baines has signed up. Our council rules, you have 3 minutes. If you'll keep all of your comments directed towards the council, we will absolutely take and listen to all of those. So we have Mr. Richard Baines at 1319 Parkview Terrace. He's speaking against item 20, which is the Broad Street pedestrian bridge agreement with TDOT. Mr. Baines.
I first heard of a pedestrian bridge over Broad Street a little over 7 years ago at a public meeting concerning the future development of the area commonly known as the Bottoms. One of the problems commented on was how to get hundreds of people across Broad Street from the downtown parking facilities during events like Uncle Dave Macon Days. A pedestrian bridge was suggested along with a lot of discussion about where it should be located. That problem was solved, however, when the Dave Macon celebration was relocated. However, the pedestrian bridge idea somehow remained like a cure looking for a disease. The pedestrian bridge proposal before you this evening is totally void of facts to support its necessity. Pedestrian crossings on Broad between Manny and West Main have not been enumerated. My observation is that they're few and scattered, thus not likely to be attracted to a pedestrian bridge. However, the future demographics proposed for the downtown area project project that the disease in the form of high-density development is on the way. That means that the current development plan for the Bottoms area is obsolete and does not address the quality of life elements needed to make it a destination for future downtown residents. My suggestion is to have another public meeting to discuss the Bottoms development in light of the current plans for the development of the downtown area. I have not seen a design for a ADA compliant bridge. I've seen a couple of renderings and I know of two. One is kind of sprawled out it takes up a lot of room, and it would extend the length of a walk across Broad Street by 300 feet. The other is an elevator. I don't know how many people in a crowd you can get in an elevator, along with bicycles or whatever. And it's much more expensive than the first one. And not having seen a design, I don't know how you can approve a project that you don't know how much it's going to cost. I trust that Sam can help us out on that. But one of the designs will also affect the area at Church and Broad. So that is my concern. I think I think this should be tabled until you have more information as for the number of people you expect to use, how much the cost is going to be based on a design, and we can get back to it. I think probably when the Keystone project comes into fruition, that a pedestrian bridge would be a good idea. It would lead to the Bottoms, and the Bottoms needs to be redeveloped into a green area to enhance the quality of life for the future residents of downtown Murfreesboro. With that, I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baines. All right, we'll move to our consent agenda. You have 6 items on the consent agenda. Is there anything that needs to be removed?
Second.
Motion is second. Please call the roll.
Ms. Averwater?
Aye.
Ms. Scales Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye. We'll move to old business. You have ordinance 23OZ33 amending the PUD zoning for property along Cason Trail. This is second and final reading.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Please call the roll.
Ms. Averwater?
Aye.
Ms. Scales Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye. We'll move to new business. You have resolution 23R31, the transfer of firearms to a retiring or separating officer. Chief Bowen.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. For your consideration this evening is a request to approve a resolution allowing MPD to present retiring or separating police officers with their sidearm and badge upon retirement. The proposed resolution incorporates changes from a previous version and allows individuals who are not on the pension system to receive their sidearm and badge after reaching 15 years of service and 55 years of age. These standards are comparable to those established for those who are currently under the pension system. At this time, I'd be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Please call the roll.
Ms. Averwater?
Aye.
Ms. Scales Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye. Thank you,
Thank you.
Chief. All right, we have resolution 23R32. This is a signal and interchange lighting maintenance agreement for Church Street, State Route 231, and I-24 exit ramp signalization. Mr. Kerr.
Bless you.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. TDOT is completing the design of a ramp queue project for the I-24 westbound off-ramp at exit 81 Church Street. Safety, capacity, and operational issues were identified as concerns on the I-24 exit ramps. The westbound exit ramp onto Church Street does not have sufficient storage length, which causes traffic queues that extend to the main line of I-24. The project provides safety enhancement for the westbound off-ramp to add an additional right turn lane and left turn lane to increase the storage while improving the operation on this approach. They're going to straighten it out a little bit more. Additionally, new mast arm signal poles, upgrading of the interchange lighting to LED, and overhead lane signage will be installed to improve the overall operations and safety at this intersection interchange. When the state installs a traffic signal as a component of a project within the city is required to provide electricity and maintain the traffic signal in proper working order. This project is anticipated for a summer of 2024 contract letting by TDOT. I'm available for any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Kerr?
Second.
Motion is second. Please call the roll.
Ms. Averwater?
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye. Thank you, Jim. All right, we'll move to land use matters. We have a rezoning property along East Northfield Boulevard and North Tennessee Boulevard. Mr. Blomley.
Thank you, and good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. Our first public hearing tonight is for the property on the north side of the intersection of East Northfield Boulevard and North Tennessee Boulevard. There's a request to rezone this property, and it's currently zoned CF, Commercial Fringe District, to both PRD and PCD. So the green area on the map is what is proposed to be rezoned to PCD, Planned Commercial District. That's 3.24 acres, and the balance of the property, about 14.85 acres, to be rezoned to PRD, Planned Residential District. The property's been zoned commercial fringe for a number of years, and I think one of the things that's hindered it in its ability to develop is the bulk of it at this location, whereas commercial at the intersection itself, there may be a need for commercial at the intersection. The bulk of this property, including the frontage along North Tennessee, I think has made it a little bit hard to develop and market as a commercial property. The applicants are requesting the rezoning for 2 commercial lots in the green area, and then a 77-unit residential development in the blue area. The blue area that is on the east side of the intersection here is primarily wetlands and would remain undeveloped and preserved. So the area on the west side of North Tennessee Boulevard would be where the 77 units would be located. And those 77 units would be 40 single-family attached homes or townhomes. Staff has worked hard with the applicants to have the design of those homes mimic as much as possible for a townhome development. Single-family structures, kind of have some of the elements of single-family structures. And the remaining 37 units would be single-family detached homes, and the entire residential 77-unit residential development would be part of a horizontal property regime. I won't go too far into the details of the development because Mr. Taylor will be getting up. Mr. Taylor or Mr. Grover, not sure which one. Mr. Grover will be giving a brief presentation. But I will go ahead and further orient you to the property. Directly to the southeast is the Forest Oaks subdivision, and the Forest Oaks is also directly across East Northfield Boulevard. Catty corner from the property at the southeast corner are 2 commercial buildings, one where the old Family Video was. I think it was a furniture store for a while after that, and then where the new Joe and Doe little strip center with the new donut shop over there. Directly to the northwest of the subject property is an apartment complex that is recently being renovated. And then directly to the north, across North Tennessee Boulevard, is the Brookwood Point Townhome Development. You can see when this photograph was taken, it was in its infancy. There are a number more buildings that have been constructed there. And then the Retreat at Northwoods Townhome Development is there. So the proposed residential uses are generally compatible with the existing residential uses in the area. The future land use map identifies this as neighborhood commercial, but as I mentioned, the bulk of the parcel has made it difficult to market and develop, and staff believes that this is an area where we can implement the transition policy in our future land use map to kind of move the residential lines over a little bit and shrink the commercial area over a little bit and still stay within the intent of the future land use map. I'll be happy to answer any questions before or after our public hearing, and now I'll invite Mr. Taylor to give you a presentation. Oh, the Planning Commission did hold a public hearing on April the 5th. And they deferred action, and it was brought back up again under old business on November the 1st, and then the Planning Commission recommended its approval at that time. There you go, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Blomley. I'm Matt Taylor of SCC. I'm accompanied tonight by my clients of Hardy and Smith, as well as Mr. Tommy Smith. They are the applicants on the project, and we do have a brief presentation over what we've called Northfield Acres. As Mr. Blomley said, the property is just under 18 acres in size. It's located at the intersection of North Tennessee and Northfield Boulevard. North Tennessee would be the blue line, Northfield the yellow, and then our property would be the highlighted in the pink and the white lines here. Today, most of the property is very heavily wooded. It generally drains from west to east. It does take on quite a bit of water from Forest Oaks. We've assured those neighbors during our neighborhood meeting, as well as the first Planning Commission public hearing, of that we would not be damming up that water. We would be installing pipe systems and ditch sections to keep it flowing from west over to North Tennessee, where it discharges today. Property is zoned commercial fringe, as Mr. Blomley said. It's been that way for as long as I've been here, 20 or 30 years. And then the site itself, I'm sure each of you are very familiar with it. The top left picture is a example of that ditch coming out of Forest Oaks onto this property. The top right would be looking from North Tennessee across the road into the site. The middle picture is an example of the apartments located to the northwest of our property. And then an example of Forest Oaks is on the bottom left. And then Brookwood Point, their construction to the bottom right. Our plan, as Mr. Blomley said, we've been working on this plan for probably 18 to 24 months with staff. It's went through various land plans, and the architecture has definitely evolved. We're very proud of where it's at. We think that you will be too. But we have what's resulted of all that time and effort is a mix of PRD and PCD. The PRD portion allows for 77 dwellings. 40 of those are attached. 37 of those are detached. On this map here, you'll see kind of the darker orange or brown colored structures. Those are the attached, so you'll see that they face directly out onto the public right-of-ways. And then the lighter tan colors are the detached, so they're fully encompassed inside the property itself. As Mr. Blomley said, all of that would be conveyed through an HPR process. And then at the intersection of Northfield and North Tennessee, we've reserved what we feel like is the most viable portion, most viable commercial portion of the property. And we think that's likely to be developed in 2 different out parcels, though we do not have any definitive users there at this time. Our residential, we think, falls in line very well with the city's comprehensive plan, what it calls the mixed form housing. There's not been a lot of examples of that. I think the Housing Authority, what they did up around Oakland, I think that's our probably first good example. We think this is going to be a second great example as well. Our plan does preserve an abundance of green space, over 30%. Of course, we have committed to the GDO lighting standards, so we don't have any light intrusion on our neighbors. And then whenever those commercial parcels do get developed, all the solid waste and parking will get screened from the right-of-way through landscaping and or berms. We do anticipate this to be developed really in 3 phases. The first phase we anticipate to be the residential shown here in pink, as well as the blue for the remainder of the residential. The commercial is going to be entirely market driven. That could happen next year. It could happen 5 years. Obviously, we're hoping for next year, but that will be when we find a suitable user that can make this site work. So that will happen as soon as that becomes viable. The detached homes, we worked very closely with staff on these. Took some architectural inspiration probably from the Tuscany development project up on Thompson Lane. You will not see a lot of repetition here. It'll be individual buildings, a lot of different elevations, very quality materials with brick, stone, fiber cement, a lot of variation. Even if the homes have the same floor plan, we have multiple elevations for each one of those so that you're not seeing that repetition throughout the development. You'll also notice that all of our garages are two-car garages. None of them are protruding garages. We've got decorative doors. This is kind of a blow-up of how the HVAC would be in the rear of the units, and then the trash carts will be stored internal to the garage. And then some example home elevations. Again, you'll see how they've downplayed the garage, provided multiple different elevations, mixing up the colors and the materials. This is one of the enhanced side elevations. So if it's facing toward a street, even if it's a private street, we got these pop-outs on the side. We've got a couple of different versions of that. We can mix in materials on that. So again, don't want the repetition. We want quality and consistency. The attached buildings shown here in the darker brown, we're going to carry the same materials from the detached over to this, but it'll just be put together in a different form. Very excited about these. They are all rear load on the garages. They're all 2 stories. We kind of turned them a manor house. We do have strong front porches facing out toward the public roads. Again, here are the trash carts inside the garage and the HVACs on the side. This will be the view that would face out toward the public streets. So you can see the stacked porches. You can see it does not look like 5 individual units like most of our townhouse projects. It looks more like one large structure. One of the sides, the other side, and then the rear. So even on the rear, it's not a bad elevation. They've really downplayed the doors well, made that a very attractive view. And that perspective view shows you all the ins and outs, the detail of this structure. So got a lot of compliments on this at Planning Commission. This just describes how it works. There's 3 units on the first floor and then 2 on the top floor. Each unit has its own assigned garage. You can see it color coded here. The ones on the bottom floor go straight from the garage into the home, whereas the 2 upper floors will share a common stairway up. Commercial building designs, again, we don't have definitive users, but we have set forth a path for success here. We've set standards that they must comply with, both in architecture and uses and landscaping. And so all of those will create a very consistent feel here, as well as protect our future owners as well as the existing owners around us. So we did put some conceptual layouts, concept plans, if you will, inside the booklet, just shown here. We do think the corner could possibly be a gas station, but again, no definitive users. We've also committed inside the book that if we have any sort of drive-through that has a speaker box, it'd be located on the eastern side of the building so that it's pointed away from our future owners as well as existing houses to the west in Forest Oaks. And then just some examples of what some of the architecture could look like. These all comply with our design guidelines. Some of these are inside of our gateway district. And if we do have a gas station, they'll have to comply with the GDO standard for the canopy. This is an example of that. Landscape design, we've got an abundance of landscaping. We've got multiple buffers, specifically between our proposed commercial and our proposed residential. We've also committed to a solid opaque fence between our project and Forest Oaks. So that came out of our neighborhood meeting we had. We'll also have foundation plantings throughout, of course, the screening that I mentioned earlier, and then some aesthetic treatments along North Tennessee. If you've driven along North Tennessee, I think the last 4 projects through there have constructed a decorative 3-plank fence as well as landscaping. We're going to continue that, so all that has that nice cohesive feel. The light blue in the lower left is where that opaque solid fence is going to go. Again, we will not allow that to block drainage, so we'll coordinate that with our drainage plan whenever it's time for that. The yellow would be where we'd install landscape and fencing between our commercial and our residential as well. Just some sample palettes and sample fence. Amenity design, it is a relatively small project, so all the amenities are convenient to all of our residents. We have selected the amenities based on our target market, which is that older empty nester. We've got a lot of sidewalks, a lot of trails, so very pedestrian friendly. They're concentrated in these red and yellow areas here, so you can see they're in the central part of the development. And just some examples of the pickleball and fire pits that can happen. Our uses, I think it's worth saying, any use that we propose in this book can be built there today. As a matter of fact, we have removed uses that could be built there today inside of our booklet. And so, and all that was based on a commercial fringe zoning, as Mr. Blomley said. The full list of uses is shown in your booklet. I won't go through all those. A couple of the high points are financial services, weight loss, restaurants, but a full list of those are inside of your booklet. These are just some measurements from these conceptual plans to our proposed residential. And then we work closely with staff during the development of this for the access. So we've got a lot of access points away from the intersections. We've also got interconnectivity between the residential and the commercial, but have designed that to be downplayed so as not to promote cut-through traffic from the commercial into the residential. Really, we want that interconnectivity, both vehicular and pedestrian, so that our residents don't have to get back out on North Tennessee or Northfield Boulevard to access those commercial uses. Again, our roads internally would be private. That'll be maintained by the HOA, and every owner here will be a member of that HOA. So we did host a neighborhood meeting, thought it was very well attended. We made several revisions coming out of that neighborhood meeting, such as the fencing I mentioned earlier. There was also a request about rental restrictions, so you'll see there's a restriction against us selling to a bulk developer for rental purposes inside the booklet. There was concerns about drainage. I feel like we addressed those at the neighborhood meeting again at Planning Commission. And of course, we would do a full design at the time of a construction plan set. And then we also moved our pickleball court to be more internal to the project. It was more toward the exterior. Somebody had some concern about noise, and so we moved that at their request. And then following Planning Commission, we made some further revisions to our access points based on concerns by neighbors as well as Planning Commission. And then we also restricted hours. If there was a gas station, we restrict those operating hours. And all of that is outlined in your pattern book. So I'll be happy to answer any questions now or after the hearing.
I have questions. Matt,
Yes,
what
ma'am.
were the restrictions on the operating hours for the C-store?
I believe it is 6 to 10.
And you guys are agreeing to that?
Yes,
I saw it
ma'am.
in staff
It-
report, but,
It is inside of our pattern book on
Okay.
page,
okay, so you're agreeing to that. Thank you.
yes, ma'am.
And then, do you have a picture of the fence that's going to be built between the development and Forest Oaks?
So,
I saw the privacy fence that's going on the patios, but I didn't know if it was different.
so we have said that's going to be a 6-foot, either a wood or a PVC fence. So one of those.
Okay.
And I think a lot of that was geared toward, we got some visitor parking in that area as well as our mail kiosk. Didn't want those headlights. And so we thought that'd be a good block of headlights.
Any berm or buffering around that fence?
There will be, we've got perimeter trees, so it's a shade tree every 40 feet along that segment of the property.
Shade tree. Do you think, Matt, that'll, hopefully as that grows, will that help prevent people from potentially scaling that fence? I understand that's a problem now in Forest Oaks from the neighboring apartments. People seem to be scaling the fence.
So what I would say is that I think our residents are going to be a little different than probably what's living inside the apartments.
I agree.
I think that the apartments have probably been a younger demographic. What's going in here, unless they're more active than I am, I don't think they're going to be scaling a 6-foot fence.
And I think that's from talking to the residents in Northwoods now, it seems like the new, we approved the bifurcation of the apartment complex. It seems like that's getting a lot better with the construction that's over in that.
As those tenants turn over.
Yes.
I hope so, yeah.
That was a rough
Yes.
complex that we were dealing with there.
And then Matt, could you touch on, you got that one already? The prohibited uses, just for our friends of Forest Oaks and the community. I talked with some of them about this yesterday, but can you go over the prohibited uses, please?
So, on page 34 of the booklet list all the permitted uses. So essentially, if it's not in this list, it's a prohibited use. We specifically called out about 4 prohibited uses just to reinforce that they are. And those are liquor store, vape, cigarette, or tobacco shop, primary drug and alcohol rehab centers, or a primary pain clinic. But again, if they're not listed explicitly in these tables, then they're not allowed. So we would have to come back through this same process if we wanted to try to add something.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Matthew, but those things would be allowed currently under the commercial fringe zoning? Or some of them would be, right?
So I'd have to check on liquor store, but I believe the pain clinic and the we don't have vape shops specified in our zoning ordinance right now. I think it would just be a retail shop.
So it could go in the
But yeah,
commercial fringe?
Yeah, as far as the primary drug and alcohol rehab centers, I'd have to look in our zoning ordinance.
Thanks, Matt. Okay, those are all my questions. Thank you, Matt. Other Matt, 2 Matts.
Any questions for Mr. Taylor? Any other questions for Mr. Taylor?
The intention is that all these will be sold to individual buyers, not
Yes.
to a bulk.
No, and we have specific language in the book that prohibits us from doing that.
Okay.
But my clients are residential builders, and so they intend to build these themselves. And they actually specifically developed the manor house or big house. That's not something they had sitting on the shelf. And so in talking and working closely with staff, we kind of developed this concept of the manor house, big house, whatever you want to call it. We got to come up with a better word, but
All right. Seeing no more questions, we need to hold a public hearing on the rezoning of this 18.02 acres. If you're wanting to speak for or against, if you'll come to the podium, if you'll keep all of your questions directed directly towards the council, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Unless you're representing a homeowners association or other group, you'll have 5 minutes. We'll get all of your questions answered at the end of the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak, please come to the podium and state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Joanna Medlin. I'm the president of the board at Forest Oaks 2 at 1003 East Northfield. One of our main concerns is the traffic. They're about to run over all of us over there on Northfield and Tennessee Boulevard. Have you all even done a traffic study in that area? We also, speeders, accidents, and then we have had some drainage problem, but I see that you all have listed that that's been looked into. It comes through and it has run out of the swell into the yard some, and it's backed up, and we have to keep that concrete swell cleaned out a lot. But maybe once if they clear some of the woods out, that'll take it on through there, but that's a concern with the water. The apartments, yes, that's been a great, terrible problem for us, throwing garbage over the fence, all kinds of things happening, but that has calmed down since. But you got 716 units over there, and that's been a traffic problem too. So that's some of the major things that we look at, and we got a lot of older people that live there, and pulling out on that street as fast as people are driving and doing, and I thank Jamie for coming over there yesterday. We went on Tennessee Boulevard and the curve there, when those people are trying to pull out of those new developments and even come down to Tennessee, they are flying and they can't even hardly get out of the driveway. So I don't know what kind of traffic you can do, what you can do about that, but it needs to be some kind of study. because there's a lot of older people that live over there too in that area. So that's my concerns, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Ms. Medlin.
I'm Bucky Phillips. I also live in Forest Oaks 2, and you need to differentiate when we're talking Forest Oaks. Forest Oaks 2 is on the same side as this development where we butt right up against it. The major community of Forest Oaks is across the street, so we have different interests in it. I'm not opposed to the residential part of this. Folks have to have a place to live. That doesn't bother me. And much of the problem that we've had with the apartments at the back end of our community has been corrected because of changes they've made in those apartments. I am concerned, and I know it's going to happen, I am concerned about a gas station, a quick stop, whatever, being at the corner, not only for the traffic. I just think it's overload on our street from Kroger on Las Casas to Memorial. You've got 6 or 7 quick stops or gas stations already. And the traffic in and out of that is going to be horrendous. I struggle with that. But my biggest issue, and I know it's been spoken to, but half of our complex, if water overflows, the berms, not all of ours is underground. Some of it is open. Now they're deep, but we have seen it to the top. And if this is not taken care of on the west end, where this is going to be, half of us are going to be a floodplain. Because if it's not kept moving, kept open, that's a real problem. I have no trouble. If I owned that property, I'd want to sell it too. That's why you buy it, it's to make a buck. No problem with that. But please take into consideration all of us going from the new property all the way back. I think it runs from behind Sonic or in that area on Memorial. That's a lot of water, and it's not all going to be piped underground. There are some of us who are going to be directly affected by that. I just ask you to please take that in consideration as you're considering this. As far as the houses, they look great. I think they'll add to the value. I don't think a quick stop's going to add to anybody's property value, just between you, me, and the gatepost. Off subject, thank you for opening with prayer. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Merry Christmas. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and we'll now consider on first reading ordinance 23 OZ 35. Who would be our resident person to ask on drainage?
Matthew?
Matt, or Mr. Taylor, can you update us on sort of what's going to happen with the internal drainage and the steps y'all will go through before this gets to site plan?
Yes, sir. So if this is approved, then our next step would be to come back with preliminary plats and site plans. Part of that is a very detailed geometric plan, a detailed utility plan, and a detailed drainage and grading plan. And so arguably the most important part of that is probably going to be the stormwater, especially for Forest Oaks 2. And so approximately here is where that enters. And so we're looking to bring that through the site. And it discharges, I forget the exact location, but there's a culvert underneath North Tennessee. And so we would take it and continue along that same path. A lot of that is going to be inside a pipe, if not all of it. And so I think Ms. Midland actually mentioned that today some of that gets clogged up because of the heavy forested areas that we talked about earlier. And so I would truly believe that anything we do here with pipe or ditches and the maintenance that we will have to do at the end of the day are going to make the situation better and not have the same maintenance concerns that they do today. And so we would do that design as a licensed engineer in the state of Tennessee. That's reviewed by city staff who are also licensed engineers in the state of Tennessee. that gets constructed. That has to get reviewed at the end of the project prior to my client getting any C of Os for the project. And essentially, I have to go out, look at the project, make sure they constructed it the way that I told them to construct it, and make sure it's going to function correctly in the future. And in addition to that, the city also requires my client to execute a stormwater maintenance plan, a stormwater maintenance agreement. The maintenance agreement gets recorded at the courthouse, and so that obligates them and any future buyers, owners, HOAs, to perform certain maintenance on the stormwater features. And if they don't, I think it gives the city the right to go in and fix those matters and back charge them. And so there's a lot more teeth today in development for stormwater than there was when Forest Oaks 2 was constructed. And I think that has proven out over the years to be effective. I think most of our new projects probably enhance or take care or fix previous drainage problems is what we have seen over the last 20 years or so.
All right. Council members, do y'all have any more questions?
Thank you, Matt. Thank you. I walked the Forest Oaks 2 this week, that area where you highlighted, and I do think the development's going to help, and I spoke with Ms. Midland about that because they have a nice, beautifully built swell, and then it just stops at this development. So I think development of this property will help some of the issues that they're having. So I think they should be very excited about that.
And again, we're here in Murfreesboro, so if there's ever something going on or a concern or you want to revisit it, we're here. We're happy to talk to the neighbors, always are, so.
And sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Jen.
I don't know if it was you, Mr. Taylor, or someone of the city I talked to, but I expressed concern for the traffic on this parcel as well, but I learned that if we developed it, or if it was developed as commercial fringe, which is the current zoning, the potential traffic impact could actually be worse on this area because there'd be many more cars coming in and out through the day rather than residential who leaves and goes to work and comes back. I
would agree with that, and I think with the way that we have developed this to make sure we have access points on to both North Tennessee as well as Northfield, it gives people the ability to go multiple directions rather than forcing everybody out onto only Northfield or only North Tennessee. This gives a lot of different options to help that traffic flow. It lets it disperse in more directions.
Right.
And that's where we wind up with problems, is when we bottleneck and give people one choice.
Yeah. And speeding on that road is an issue. I don't blame your client or you for that. I think it's a 40-mile-per-hour speed limit, and people are doing 65, 70 around those curbs. So I'm going to work with the city and see if we can do anything to help slow cars down in that area without inhibiting the development or inhibiting growth in any way. So I'll tell you, when I ran for city council, I had no idea that I would get in a stranger's car and drive around for a little bit. And yesterday I found myself in Miss Midland's car, and I got in and I buckled up and I thought, did I just agree to get into a stranger's car? This is not very smart. But she took me for a little tour around the development, and we talked about the pros and the cons, and cars were driving very, very fast. So hopefully, to people that live in that area, I'm going to try to work with the city and see if there's something we can do to help calm some of the speed, not so much the traffic, but the speed. But I do think, I gave this project somewhat of a hard time at Planning Commission, but with the changes, I think it does look really good, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for moving. This happened at Planning Commission, so not all the council members are aware. But the entrance on Tennessee was in the middle of the curve going towards the stoplight in kind of a blind area. So moving it halfway back, it gives a lot more visual to get in and out of the neighborhood.
And we did a right in, right out too. We discussed that, so. I'm
Matt,
happy.
with, you'd said that there's no, I guess, current potential clients for the commercial property for, gas station, C-store, what.
We don't have any line up right now.
So hypothetically, let's just say a year, 2 years, 3 years, still don't have somebody. But you build these homes, these townhomes, and they're good-looking homes. They're going to sell. Would y'all be open to coming back and saying, we want to now add in 20 more, 30 more townhomes?
You know, we've not really talked about that. You know, our thought is that we're going to clean up this corner. We're going to clean up the whole property. We think that it will help these sell. You know, as far as coming back, we try not to come back, to be honest with you, Councilman.
Yeah.
We try to get these right.
Try to stay away from us, that's what you're saying?
We try to. And you know, and working with staff, I think there was a desire on both parties, ours as well as staff's, to keep an element of commercial at this corner and on this property. But I think all of us agreed that, you know, the entire property being zoned commercial, just, you know, that was probably 20 or 30 years ago that decision was made, and that world was a little different then.
Yeah.
You know, you could have got a big box maybe, but it just never came.
Yep. I like it. I think it looks good. I'm not wild about the gas station, but, you know, so be it.
Well, and it may not be that. The market will prove out.
Is there a ruling, I know one of the gentlemen mentioned that it's already about 5 or 6 gas stations. Is it a limit that as a city we have as far as distance between?
No, ma'am. The only limits that I know of in the city have to do in relation of either adult-oriented businesses to a school or religious facility, or I think liquor. There's distance requirements between liquor stores, and I think there's also some requirements between maybe beer sales or liquor sales in churches. Those are the only ones that I'm aware of. And, you know, whenever I was thinking about that as he said that, you know, I know there's a couple at the intersection of Las Casas and Northfield. There's also a couple back at the intersection of Northfield Memorial. You know, Northfield's a pretty long street. There's also, I think there's one mid-block through there. What I could tell you is the standards that we've put in this book and that would be required by the city today, the one that's mid-block, this would look nothing like that. This would be a much nicer facility. It's going to control the light. It's going to be much greener. So it's not going to be that same look. It's not going to have that same feel.
Any other questions for Mr. Taylor?
You have the motion.
I'll make the motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Ms. Brown, please call the roll.
Ms. Aberwater?
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye. All right, we'll move to item 11, rezoning property along North Manny Avenue and Lee Street.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our next public hearing tonight is for a rezoning along North Manny Avenue. There we go. Property along the east side of North Manny Avenue and along the west side of Lee Street. It is all or part of 5 parcels to the north of East Bell Street and to the south of Jackson Street. There are currently 2 residential structures on the properties which are intended to be demolished for this proposed residential development. The property is currently zoned OGR and CCO, OGR being General Office District Residential, and CCO, the City Core Overlay District. Total acreage is 1.18 acres. The request is to rezone it to PRD, Planned Residential District, for a total of 11 dwelling units. There would be 4 single-family detached homes proposed on North Manny Avenue and 7 single-family attached townhomes proposed along Lee Street. Directly to the north of the subject property is an existing church, and to the south of the subject property is the Doors of Hope nonprofit, as well as a small shop located at the northeast corner of Manny and Bell. And then, of course, the Demas's office is located across the street there on the west side of North Manny Avenue. North Manny Avenue is primarily single-family residential in nature, but there are, once you get away from North Manny Avenue, there are a variety of single-family and multifamily uses in the area. The applicant made his request for a planned residential district, went to the Planning Commission on July the 11th. Planning Commission deferred action at that time. Went back to Planning Commission on October the 11th, and Planning Commission deferred action once more because the developer was unable to attend. And then on November 1st, it went back to the Planning Commission under old business, and the Planning Commission approved the request at that time. We did hold a neighborhood meeting for this request on August the 14th, and it was pretty well attended, probably about 20 folks or so. The recently adopted future land use map of the 2035 comprehensive plan specifies that the western portion of the property fronting on North Manny Avenue develop as single-family residential with the neighborhood compatible overlay. So in other words, single-family detached homes with setbacks and characteristics that are compatible with the surrounding single-family homes. And staff believes that the proposed 4 single-family homes along North Manny Avenue are consistent with the future land use map. The east side of the development along Lee Street is in the North Highland Avenue planning study area, and the North Highland Avenue planning study calls it out as mixed residential housing, and the proposed single-family attached townhomes, because there are no more than 4 units per building, are generally consistent with the recommendations of the North Highland Avenue planning study. So I won't go into any further detail about the proposal because Mr. Clyde Roundtree has a brief presentation that he would like to give you. I'll be happy to answer any questions before or after our public hearing. And Mr. Burns could not be here today, but Mr. Drew Alderson with B&A Homes representing Mr. Burns is here as well.
All right, any questions for Mr. Blomley? All right, thank you. Mr. Roundtree.
Good evening, council members. My name is Clyde Roundtree with Holston Steel Engineering, and I'm here representing Brian. And as Matthew mentioned, Drew's available for any specific questions related to the architecture of the buildings. I'd like to thank Holly for working so hard. Holly's really put a lot of effort to help us get in, to minimize the exceptions that we're asking for, to try to work through the compatibility of adjacent neighbors. And I think Mr. Burns, I think Brian's very committed working within the CCO. He's been very successful working with projects within this area, and I think he's very conscientious about what he tries to put forward. So we have, as Matthew mentioned, we've had several opportunities to work through this process. We've gone from, we've reduced quite a bit of townhomes throughout the process, and we feel like we've come to a position where Mr. Burns feels like he can move forward with the project, and we feel like the Planning Commission was accepting our proposal as well. One thing about the project, Mr. Burns also bought 2 commercial properties that are on the corner of East Bell Street and then North Manny Avenue. So one is the Crying Cat bookstore. That's going to stay intact, as well as there's another commercial building behind that one. And then, as mentioned, the Doors of Hope Ministries there. So this has a really kind of eclectic feel from a development standpoint, which we feel like is fitting for the Highlands area. It's really neat to see kind of, just as much as we're wrestling through a gas station related to the neighborhood, I think it's kind of neat in this area to have that kind of fabric where there's commercial and residential kind of weaved in, has a real kind of local flavor. And both those homes that are being preserved for business are going to stay in their character. Brian's not going to take those down and make them contemporary. They're very much going to stay in character as they are now. So as Matthew mentioned, I'll just kind of go through the presentation real quickly. That's a rendering of the character of the homes along North Manny. Definitely going to highlight the craftsman style, dormers, a lot of detailing, brackets, accentuated porches, very consistent with what's going along North Manny. Mr. Burns has actually restored a home across the street, which has been sold, but he's very sensitive to the character of the homes in the neighborhood, so we wanted to find something that was fitting. I'll just jump over to the site plan. So as was mentioned, the homes in the yellow are the single-family detached homes along North Manny. Unique to these homes, that lots are deeper. One of the appeals to Mr. Burns was that these lots were deep, so he could provide detached garages on 3 of the 4 homes. Those detached garages are 3-car garages with additional parking adjacent to those garages on the driveways. The homes do share a driveway, so the first 2 homes towards the north share a driveway, and the 2 homes to the south share a driveway. We're up against the church. The church is staying intact. There's a large field related to the northern side of the property, and as was mentioned, the 2 homes to the southern portion are going to stay commercial. On the back side, along Lee Street, are the townhomes, and as was mentioned, there's a cluster of 4 in the rear and then 3 on the front. The ones in the rear will be front-loaded garages. The ones in the front will be rear-loaded garages. The townhomes in the rear will be front-loaded garages. Mr. Burns participated in a project right down the street on Lee Street, so these are very comparable to what's already been constructed about 2 blocks down. It's been a very successful project at this point. The only difference between these homes and what was previously constructed is that our formal open space on the front units are porches. We have minimum square foot, 50 square feet porches that accommodate for the formal open space on these units. Let's see. So as was mentioned, the character of the homes, craftsman style, that's both front and rear, has really porches on both the front and rear is really important. As was mentioned, 3-car garages in the rear with additional 3-car just kind of freelance parking within the parking driveway area. Another example of one of the homes is the type B home, porches on the front, porch on the rear, kind of a quasi 3-story with a shed dormer on the top. And then the third home, again, a lot of articulation for the craftsman style. We feel like that's where the North Highlands directs us architecturally, and Mr. Burns was sensitive to that. As far as the townhomes are concerned, this is what was mentioned. The ones on the top right are the Lee Street townhomes that are down the street about 2 blocks. We are doing something fairly comparable. We did add the front porches to kind of create a little bit more interest from Lee Street. And the other thing we did was we were directed to kind of make it look a little bit more monolithic. Right now, the ordinance has it to where homes that are along a right-of-way, if they're attached, need to look more like a single-family home. So that we think that works when there's 2 homes that are combined. When you have 3, it makes it a little bit more difficult. So we tried to stay sensitive to scale. We tried to have the front porches all to kind of make it look kind of uniform and potentially more like a single-family home. But because we have 3, it made it a little bit more difficult. But we're happy with kind of the overall aesthetic. We do feel like there's been some critiques on the front elevations of the homes down the street. There's not as much articulation, and we were able to get more articulation on this and fulfill the need for the private open space. So that being said, we did kind of unify the color as well to kind of make that more uniform in nature. Just a little parking analysis. That was a concern that the Planning Commission had is adequate parking. So all the townhomes will have a 1-car garage with 1 car loaded behind that with an additional parking space as well. There are 3 bedrooms. The CCO allows us to have, it's a 1-for-1 parking ratio, so we can have 3 spaces for a 3-bedroom. But as is always a concern, is making some additional parking. So we were able to put 2 additional car parking spaces for guests. Those are justified towards the southern portion of the property. You can kind of see them freelancing towards the southern portion, 2 cars. And as far as, it did come up that, where are the AC units located? All the AC units are located behind the homes, and all the dumpsters, the polycarts are located inside the garages. There is a mail kiosk that's been located that will service the townhomes. It will be a privacy fence that borders the property, kind of separates both properties. And as you can see, it extends all the way on the single family as well, so the church has a privacy divide from the single family detached as well as the attached homes, and also a privacy fence that separates the commercial from the residential. That's really the extent of it. It's really, it's an infill project. Mr. Burns was able to get this at auction probably almost a year and a half ago. At this point, there's been 1 building that's been demolished, and I think that there's a home that has been really close to be taken down. He's had some residents in these homes. It is an area that's kind of in transition, so we feel like we are improving the neighborhood, and continue to stay consistent. North Manny's really done well. There's been a lot of street improvements. It's a very neat character along North Manny. Lee Street, on the other hand, is a little bit more in a little bit more of a transition state. So with that in mind, if you have any questions for me in particular, I'd love to answer them. If Mr. Everson can answer a question, we'd be glad to. And we'd be more than happy to come after the public hearing and answer questions that any citizens may have.
Any questions for Mr. Roundtree?
Nope.
All right, we'll need to hold a public hearing for this rezoning of this zoning of 1.18 acres. Anyone wishing to speak for or against, please come to the podium.
Hi, Michelle Russell. My address is 1021 East Bell Street. And I have studied the plans and made a number of notes. I wanted to say, aside from East Main Street, Manny Avenue is one of the most historic streets in Murfreesboro because it leads to Oakland's Mansion, one of the jewels in our town. There are also many other unique and historic homes on this avenue. And I appreciate the work that has been done in planning these homes on Manny, but I do have some concerns. For one, I went and studied the lot and the houses. Some of the houses seem to be very clumped together, so they have four, and so it doesn't leave much room for greenery or gardens, which would fit in with the ambiance of the neighborhood. My other question was, what will they actually look like? Will they be painted differently, to fit in with the other houses? Or will they look like, the neighborhood will look like a bunch of old houses in a new development? And there was something, and also, okay, so moving on to the next part is the townhouses. This is more complex. So I know the block between Manny and Lee is a very thick block, so, you want to build on it, and what would you do? Every week, there are houses in this town that are disappearing and being replaced by townhomes and apartments. This has already happened further up on Manny toward Oakland's on Lee Street. And when you drive down Manny, you can clearly see these huge townhouses towering over the house that's already sitting there. So my feeling is that if this were to happen at Manny and Bell, it would totally destroy the historic view of Manny Avenue. And so I thought it would also be, it seems like there's a lot of cement in this plan. It's all cement that, green space, planting. Sorry, I wrote a lot of notes, but people seem to be building larger homes now, not smaller homes, for mid-income and smaller families with yards. And it seemed like we needed more homes that would fit in with the neighborhood, not more townhouses. We're getting, the farmland's being filled with townhouses and apartments and big houses, and we do not want our historic downtown to be like this. The people who live in downtown have long appreciated the historic beauty and peace we find here. If unchecked, this building, which is popping up every few blocks, and lack of care for our history, what makes Murfreesboro so special will be ruined. In addition, maybe not with this, but I worry about the buildup of traffic. Our streets are not made to have a lot of traffic.
Thank you, Ms. Russell.
So I just concluded, I hope the council will consider these points. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Russell. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against?
I'm Linda Stevens. I live at 312 North Manny. I bought that house in 2015, And somebody told me that the reason this development is necessary is because so many people want to live there. So that made me start thinking, why did I want to live downtown on Manny Avenue? Partly because I was on the Main Street Board for multiple years, but mostly it is the ambiance, the trees, the shrubbery, the greenery. And I have to say, since I bought that house in, I think I mentioned 15, I'm a gardener. When I first moved in, I had 3 beds that were full shade flower beds. This year, my hostas that are in those beds got burned. So did my witch hazel, all of which are shade plants, which tells me, since I haven't moved any trees or anything in my yard, all of the trees being cut down around me is changing the footprint of my property. Now, the other thing, when I bought that house, you had just had a study and what you were going to do with Manny Avenue, because the street is so narrow with so many houses, you were going to have parking on one side of the road and make the road a little bit wider. Well, that's never happened. But when 2 cars pass on Manny Avenue and there's cars parked on either side, somebody's got to pull over. So where we had 2 city blocks or 2 city lots before, residential lots before, now we're going to have 4 houses. So instead of having the cars from 2 residences pulling onto Manny Avenue, we're going to have the cars from 4 residences pulling onto Manny Avenue. And in addition to that, Lee Street is going to get the real brunt of it. I wish you would consider the gem of Manny Avenue, the fact that where we live used to be on the property of Oakland's Manor. That's part of our history, it's part of our heritage, and it just breaks my heart that we don't appreciate it more and that we're just willy-nilly cutting down trees. That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens.
Yes, my name is Kathy Green, and I live at 726 North Manny. We moved here in 1995, and after looking many places, we opted to move downtown. At that time, it wasn't the best neighborhood, but it was the only neighborhood we found that had sidewalks and a park and the trees. And we actually invested in the neighborhood because we decided to stay here. We had bought a house that was too small. We were able to purchase the crack house we wound up living next door to. I know you know where it is. And we had them both torn down and rebuilt something that looked historic. In fact, many people are surprised to find out that's a 20-year-old house. I say all that, we lost a lot. That was not smart financially. We sunk a lot of money with the guarantee that they weren't going to allow stuff like this project, that they were going to make people have the single lots, single house on a single lot. I have to agree about what's on Lee Street. It looks hideous going up and down Manny Avenue. Mr. Burns has built something absolutely gorgeous at Evergreen and Highland. This lot has 7 large trees that he is going to totally denude, tear down all the trees. 3 of those line the church that I attend, and we have real concerns about what the drainage is going to be if he cuts down all those trees. And I'm hoping you will not approve this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gray. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Hi, I'm Steve Boffman. I live at 315 North Manny. I've lived in this house for over 40 years. It was actually built in 1872, right after the Civil War. Manny Avenue is considered the first subdivision of Murfreesboro. Manny's had to start selling off acreage when they couldn't get restitution from the federal government for their damages. And 3-acre lots were being sold off. That's where Northfield became, that was the north field of the plantation. My house is right there. I'm not against the development and the redevelopment of that. I'm opposed to 4 units being put into that tight area. It's not really feasible. It doesn't really go with the neighborhood of that many cars and going in and out. But, you know, that's just the way things are. I am a member of the Historical Society, a board member. I'm also a member of Tennessee Environmental Council, which is about trees and planting. I plant trees. We're reforesting of that. And we have other projects. So yes, we're losing a lot of that canopy, and that's part of what makes this town good. Anyway, I'm not opposed to it, but just on the scale of that, at least on Manny Avenue. 4 units is too many for that space. 3 is okay. I'm not talking about Lee at all on there. Anyway, thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Boffman. Always good to see you. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. We'll now consider on first reading ordinance 23 OZ 36.
Mayor, I'm concerned about the aesthetics on Manny as well, but you know, our Corps has to find a way to balance this aesthetics of the environment of our community and what it was and what it can be. And you know, the fact is, there's just a certain amount of land, and then there's something that can make it profitable or reasonable for someone to develop. I thought the consideration of having single-family homes facing Manny as opposed to townhomes or something like that was a concession. It looks different than the homes that were there for all of my lifetime. But I'm not sure that that's not something that has to be considered. It's going to look different. But as these properties need development, I mean, I know there was a time when everyone was buying those homes and trying to repurpose them, I guess. And they spent a lot of money, like you said. I think it was Ms. Green that said, spent a lot of money trying to renovate an old house. And there's some beautiful homes that have architecture that we'll never see again in them. This is a compromise, I think, on trying to maintain the aesthetics to some degree and make it economically profitable or practical for a developer to develop that property. Not sure about Lee Street. That's a lot of development over there, but quite honestly, anything positive in that area of town, I hope it can change the atmosphere of that neighborhood. So I think people know I'm concerned about history of our community, but I do think this is not a bad project. I can't vote against it. So I'll move that we approve it.
Second.
Motion is second. Ms. Brown, please call the roll.
Ms. Saberwater?
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye. All right, we'll move to item 12, rezoning property along Van Cleve Lane. Mr. Blomley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a small 0.35 acre area of land on a parcel that is on the east side of Van Cleve Lane, south of Wilkinson Pike. The area that is directly in front of it to the east is developed with the Roscoe Brown Heating and Air business. Roscoe Brown has come to us and has indicated a need to expand their outdoor parking area and their outdoor storage area. And so the area that is here, that is already zoned light industrial, they would be expanding into that. And they are also planning on expanding into this strip right here. So right now the property is zoned RS15, single family residential. It's part of a wooded tract that fronts on Van Cleve Lane. What Roscoe Brown plans on doing is subdividing the property and adding this 0.35 acres onto their lot so that they can expand. And in order to do so, because their use is not permitted in the RS15 zone, they're requesting a rezoning from RS15 to light industrial, which is what the balance of their existing tract is already zoned. So that light industrial would make it consistent with the remainder of their property. Directly to the west of the subject property is old single-family residential subdivision that was developed out in the county on Van Cleve Lane and Harding Place, south of Wilkinson Pike. To the north of the subject property is the Trust Point Hospital, Trust Point Rehab Hospital, and there are several other contractors' offices to the south of the Roscoe Brown, including Team Electric. The Planning Commission conducted a public hearing on this request at its November the 1st meeting and voted to recommend its approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions either before or after our public hearing this evening.
Any questions for Mr. Blomley? All right, we'll need to hold a public hearing on this zoning request of 0.15 acres. Anyone wishing to speak for or against, please come to the podium. All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. We'll now consider on first reading ordinance 23OZ38.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Please call the roll.
Ms. Saberwater?
Aye.
Ms. Scales Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye. All right, we'll move to Planning Commission recommendations. Mr. Blomley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our last public hearing tonight is for a 0.15 acre.
East Castle. I'm Skip. Yep, so we have a rezoning request on East Castle Street.
Yes, sir. So this one is even smaller than the last one that we had. 0.15 acres located along East Castle Street. It's along the north side of East Castle Street, just to the west of South University. You'll see that on the map before you, this area here is the rear of the Patterson Park Community Center. And this area here is the Murfreesboro Housing Authority Parkside Residential Development. So the subject property is currently zoned RD. On this side of the block, there are single-family uses, two-family uses, but the RD zone, which, and Mr. Burns came to us and said he wanted to develop a two-unit structure. The RD zone actually requires a minimum lot size of 8,000 square feet in order to develop a two-family residential dwelling. So with this property being only about 6,500 square feet, we told Mr. Burns that the zoning would not allow that. And so Mr. Burns instead made a request to rezone the property to a planned residential development in order to accommodate those two dwelling units. The property, as I mentioned, is zoned RD, and it's also in our city core overlay district. The use is generally compatible with what's around it. Mr. Brian Grover with SEC will give us a brief presentation on the proposed development, after which I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. The Planning Commission did conduct a public hearing on this matter on November the 1st and voted to recommend its approval at that time.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. I'm Brian Grover with SUC. I'm here on behalf of Mr. Burns along with Drew of BA Homes. Thank you for this opportunity to present to you our rezoning application of East Castle Manor. As Matthew stated, and I'll try and go through this, we don't reiterate too much, the project is located in the 500 block of East Castle Street between South Highland Street and South University Street. Closer look, more of a bird's eye of the site here. I believe this photo is about November of last year or so. And when you see the existing photos, that house actually has since been removed already. There were some safety concerns with trespass on site, so the house was demolished. The site, and as well as its adjoining neighboring properties, are all zoned residential duplex. As Matthew stated, the restriction of the lot size as well as the lot width would not allow the duplex product to be presented on this site, so hence our reason to come before you today with this PRD. This is the site looking from East Castle Street into the site. As you can see, the home is no longer there. And a view from the rear of the site looking towards East Castle Street with the Parkside apartment complex in the background. View of the existing streetscape as it is today. Some of the surrounding developments, this is about 5 or 6 homes down from East Castle Street. Follow a very similar pattern to what we're proposing here today, more of a combined element to the duplex, but still having that architectural elements that make it appear closer to a single-family home, as well as the proposed apartment complex redevelopment just across the street from our project, once again having more along the lines of attached homes along East Castle, once again resonating with that single-family detached home look that we really believe that our product will also bring to this street as well, helping just recharging this entire block along East Castle Street. The proposed PRD does consist of just 2 units on approximately 1.15 acres for a density of just around 13.3. It would be a duplex on an HPR that would be managed by a third-party HOA. The landscaping on site would be along East Castle Street. We are hoping to preserve as much of the existing tree canopy at the rear of the site as possible. Some more utilitarian diagram here. The site is proposing 3 parking spaces within the CCO. We're only required 2 for 2 units and above, so we are providing an additional parking space compared to normal standards within the CCO. You will see that the garage widths and depths here are 11 by 19. Typically in Murfreesboro, you're looking at the standard of 11 feet 4 inches compared to 20. We are asking an exception to reduce that size a little bit because we are dealing with a tighter space, but we are providing an area in the garage that would allow for storage of trash bins and water heater and other utilitarian items typically found in the garage. The architectural characteristics of the homes, they would be 2-story, not to exceed 35 feet, approximately 1,500 square feet in size. They would have 3 bedrooms, as well as rear patios of the homes. They would be front entry garages, which is, as you'll see, one of the exceptions we're asking, because CCO typically does not allow front entry garages within the district. However, we would be providing decorative garage doors with windows to help compensate for that. Also, per our Planning Commission meeting, one of the items that was brought up that wouldn't be included with this was a brick water table around the building, and that is something that Mr. Burns agreed to. The first floor consists primarily of your daily living quarters, so your living room, dining room, kitchen, with the bedrooms on the 2nd story. Sample of the architecture, as you can see, there's several different levels of the horizontal and vertical planes, creating a lot of character within the architecture that does resonate that single family look. The western and eastern side both have a multitude of windows that create some character and aspects rather than just a large plain wall. And those different variations of planes within the front are also reflected within the rear of the unit's elevation as well. Access is simply straight off of East Castle Street. They are about approximately 22-foot deep driveways. The CCO requires a build 2 line. We are requesting an additional 1 foot to that build 2 line to make sure that our cars can be able to park there appropriately and not overhang into the sidewalk. The open space on site, the CCO does require private open space. So this private open space is provided within the front stoops as well as the rear of these homes. These rear areas are delineated and separated through a 6-foot privacy fence within the center of the homes, and a 4-foot decorative aluminum fence is located on the sides to help delineate that space to be private for the individual residents. Here's a list of requested exceptions. We have worked with Holly with these to make sure that we are covering everything we need to. These are all found inside your pattern book. If you have any questions specifically about any of those, I would be more than happy to go over with them with you tonight. Past that, if you guys have any questions or concerns, I'd be happy to hear those now or after the public hearing.
Any questions?
What's the address on that? What's the address going to be on this property? The address? What's
The address? I believe that is it 528, 529?
So it's in the, okay. It's a block from the 616 East Castle. Okay.
Yeah, it's just right across the street from the Parkside Apartment Complex, just northwest of the community center there.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
All right, we'll need to hold the public hearing for the rezoning request for this .15 acres. Anyone wishing to speak for or against, please come to the podium. All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. We'll now consider on first reading ordinance 23OZ38.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Ms. Saberwater?
Aye.
Ms. Scales Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye. All right. Mr. Blomley, we have recommendations from the Planning Commission.
We do. We have 3 from the Planning Commission meeting last night, and we are recommending January the 11th as public hearing dates for those. We already have 2 public hearings scheduled for that night, so already a night we know we'll be meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Ms. Saberwater?
Aye.
Ms. Scales Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matthew.
Mr. Blomley, thank y'all for y'all's hard work. All right, we have Mr. Gerke here to talk about the purchase of a property in the runway protection zone. Mr. Gerke.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. A few months ago, a neighbor at 1816 Harold Lane approached the airport about the possible sale of her house and the airport purchasing it. This property lies within the runway protection zone, which was identified in the 2013 airport layout plan for purchase. And we will have gone through the appraisal process and all that, and the owner has agreed to the purchase price of $321,000. Funding would come from the airport fund and $40,000 from FY24 CIP. Currently, RPZ, the runway protection zone, is not a priority with our state aeronautics division, so other alternative funding will be pursued at this time for this property and others that we're purchasing in the RPZ. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to take them at this time.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Ms. Saberwater?
Aye.
Ms. Scales Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Gerke. All right, we'll look at a professional services agreement for Armory Drive. Mr. Griffith.
Thank you, Mayor, and the members of the City Council. Staff requested a proposal from Kimley Horn for the preliminary and final design for the realignment of Armory Drive. The design realigns Armory Drive approximately 500 feet to the north, connecting it with the existing intersection of Sam Walton Drive and Thompson Lane. The project will also include signal improvements at the new intersection. The cost of the work is estimated to be the cost of the design is estimated to be $255,900 and is funded through our CIP. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
How does this affect the old YMCA building since it's going right through the middle? Is there still going to be adequate parking for that building going forward?
There will be. It'll actually go just in front of the building. The parking will be separated, but And of course, there's also been developers looking at redeveloping that area as well. But we're not planning on touching the building, and it probably will affect probably the first row of parking there at least.
Any questions for Mr. Griffith?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Please call the roll.
Ms. Averwater?
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye, we'll move to item 18. This is Butler Drive realignment CEI contract.
Item
there's-
17.
Excuse me, item 18, Butler, I missed 17, I'm sorry, I've check marked off Armory. Butler Drive realignment award of the contract engineering. Sorry about that, Chris.
No problem. This is for the approval of construction agreement with Moody Excavating. The project realigns Butler Drive to the west and ties it into Joe B. Jackson Parkway, about 600 feet west of the current intersection. The design is for a 3-lane curb and gutter section with the allowance of sidewalk on each side as outlined as a committed project in the 2040 major thoroughfare plan. Moody Excavating submitted the lowest responsible bid in the amount of $7,039,011. During bid evaluations, it was found that one line item estimated to be a little over $2,200 was unintentionally omitted. Staff recommends waiving this issue as it doesn't influence the project's low bid and the item can be added through a later change order. Staff further recommends awarding the contract up to an additional 5% or $7,390,962. The estimated construction costs are within the total project budget and are funded by the F21 and 22 CIP budgets. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
If there are none, I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion is second. Please call the roll.
Ms. Averwater?
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye. Now we'll go to Butler Drive realignment construction management contract.
Yes, sir. This is just a contract with Kimley Horn to help us with the construction administration on the previously approved project. The expense of estimated expense of $112,000 was then the projected construction cost, and again is funded by our CIP fund. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
No questions, move for approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Ms. Brown, please call the roll.
Ms. Averwater?
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye. All right, we'll move to Puckett Creek Master Services Agreement and Task Order.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. I'm Jennifer Knopf. I'm a project engineer for the planning department, and I'm the city's floodplain administrator. I am here tonight to present the master services agreement with Volkert and Task Order 1 for the Puckett Creek letter of map revision. With this task order, Volkert proposes to perform hydrologic and hydraulic engineering services along the Puckett Creek floodplain and floodway, beginning at its confluence with Overall Creek and ending upstream to Old Salem Road, the current limits of the detailed study. The hydraulic evaluation results and supporting documentation will be submitted to FEMA to obtain a letter of map revision. This will provide the city with an updated flood study to ensure that the flood insurance rate map is the most accurate reflection of the flood risk. The general scope of work entailed with this task order includes field survey, hydrologic and hydraulic evaluations, floodplain and floodway analysis, and inundation mapping, engineering report, and the FEMA LOMR submittal coordination and approval. The total of this task order is $88,750. We would ask that you approve the Master Services Agreement and Task Order 1, which will be funded by stormwater funds. Thank you, and I'm available for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Knopf.
If there are no questions, I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Ms. Saberwater?
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye. And I think that's the first time in 20 years I've sat up here that I've heard the word confluence. Is that right? Is that what you said? Confluence, yeah, that's the first time I've heard that.
Quarter word.
That you win the big word of the night award.
Talk like
And speaking of big words going to small words, Mr. Kerr will go to Broad Street Pedestrian Bridge Agreement with TDOT.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. This is for the Broad Street Pedestrian Bridge Agreement with TDOT, Mr. Mayor.
We're 2 hours in, so, and it's the holiday of coughs, and we're all up
I
here.
understand. Staff through TDOT's competitive TAP grant program submitted a proposal for a pedestrian bridge project near the intersection of Broad Street and South Church Street. The intent of the project is to provide a safe pedestrian alternative from Murfreesboro's downtown to the proposed Town Creek project in the historic Bottom Corridor. This agreement provides for 80% of construction cost only, up to $1,780,310. The city's responsibility includes 20% of construction, as well as 100% of cost of PE NEPA, PE design, utility coordination, and right-of-way phases. The project has been added to the Metropolitan Planning Organization FY 2023 through 2026 Transportation Improvement Plan, and this expense of $2,610,388 is funded by federal and local dollars. The local portion, $800,078, is funded by FY 21 and FY 22 bond money. I'm available for any questions.
Does this, the question came up earlier about ADA compliant.
It has to meet ADA compliance.
Yeah. So whether it's an elevator or whatever it does.
That's part of the program. It has to meet ADA compliance.
There are several of the bridges in Nashville that you walk across that all have, they still have stairs,
Ramps.
but they have to have an
That's
elevator. I mean, typically I agree with Mr. Baines, going back to Mr. Baines, the discussion on Dr. Martin Luther King Drive now, that we've got sidewalks on there based on part of that discussion. The part I struggle with, respectfully, we have talked about a pedestrian bridge regardless of whether Uncle Dave Macon Days is still there or not. We've talked about a pedestrian bridge over South Front Street. We've talked about a pedestrian bridge over Church. And with the investment that we're making to Town Creek, I would rather have the err on the side of caution of at least letting people be able to get across a 5-lane road to be able to go over to Town Creek, as opposed, and be able to use the city parking garage, which is underutilized right now, as opposed to trying to figure out where to park.
You've also got to remember that section of Broad Street is part of the I-24 Smart Corridor project. So when things are down on the interstate, they're going to be flushing traffic.
Well, that's part of
corridor.
I think that's part of the overall discussion of linking Murfreesboro all the way to Nashville now, that when there are issues on I-24.
That's correct.
All of our signals are going to be controlled by what they're doing. So
Right, exactly.
I don't know. I go from the standpoint that there's a lot of criticism we get that about not making Murfreesboro pedestrian friendly, and this is one small step to be able to do that. I mean, the number of people I was on Broad Street today in front of 84 Lumber, and there was a gentleman on a bicycle that had parked his bicycle on the side of the road, and he was going to the racetrack across the street, and he dropped his phone in the lane, so the traffic was stopped because he had dropped his phone to try to get to his bike. So trying to find ways that people can get across the roads, I think it's beneficial.
I'd have left my phone, though.
Church Street, I mean, getting across Broad is one issue, getting across Church is the other.
Well, that's true. The actual plan for this particular bridge would be able to possibly extend it later to carry it over Church Street.
Okay,
So we're going to look at that while we're going through the design phase.
makes sense.
As we're looking at this, I didn't mean to get side-railed or sidetracked, but I do think it's important that we look for a pedestrian crossing where South Front Street is. I mean, if we keep looking at that, to be able, for that downtown area to be able to cross over, hopefully, if development of any kind happens in that Bottoms area.
Okay, sure.
So this can be used by anybody.
Mhm.
It's not going to be a deal where, you know, we're going to do, like go back to the TIF for Keystone, where we gave a TIF, but there's only 30 parking spaces, Sean?
That's what came out in planning yesterday.
Okay. So this is
is
for
open to the public.
any and every pedestrian wanting to go across it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Kerr, I'm gonna try to let you go from a peon to a hero right here. It's something I've been meaning to ask you every time you get up. I don't ever think about it till I get in the car. But how much TDOT grant fund has the city received, let's say in the last 5 years, through grant writing?
Competitive grant funding, probably around 20 million, somewhere in that neighborhood.
I was thinking, I estimated, I said, I don't know why 15 jumped in my head, but I just want to commend you because you're responsible for that $20 million because you have been writing these grants. I don't know if people are aware, but you're the one that writes the grants for the city for this, and that speaks volumes, $20 million.
We have a lot of staff support for a lot of things, so it's a group effort for sure.
So we just want to, our hat's off, it's off to you.
I would ask, is there a way I can get a cut out of that finder's fees?
Small percentage.
Mr. Kerr, I don't know if you saw, but you got an email from the entire city council of a Christmas gift that would be on your next paycheck.
Thank you very much.
I think he was working for
Sir.
Juicy.
Yeah.
You had a good English teacher growing up, so we thank you.
Where is our Christmas money? We get a case of Tylenol, that's all we get. And no, great job, Mr. Kerr.
Second.
Motion is second. Ms. Brown, please call the roll.
Ms. Saberwater?
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye. Jim, thank you so much for your hard work on this. And I do think we also have to, as we talk about partnerships with TDOT, we do have to say our local delegation helps tremendously with helping get funds distributed back to Murfreesboro.
I do have one more thing to say. As y'all recall, we submitted on the Modernization Act, and I was told yesterday at an MPO meeting that the announcement for those projects, whoever gets selected, will be December 18th. So hopefully we'll have a Merry Christmas, but we'll wait and see.
Thank you, Jim. I know y'all put a lot of hard work in that. All right, do we have any no, we have no board and commission appointments. Do we have any licensing?
We have 2 regular permits for new locations for a coffee shop located at 11 South Public Square and a grocery/market located at 5229 Veterans Parkway. Applicants have met requirements for a permit and are recommended for approval pending final building and codes inspections.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Please call the roll.
Ms. Saberwater?
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye. We have no statements to be paid. Mr. Gerke, I think you have taxiway A and apron pavement rehabilitation work authorization amendment.
Yes, sir. This is, last week this came before you, and one of the items was the barge design solution work authorization. The attachment was an earlier version. I'm providing you the latest version of that. There was just changes amongst the survey, residential project, and construction testing. The amount of $72,637 did not change. So just wanting to get approval on the correct attachment there.
So
for you.
moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Please call the roll.
Ms. Averwater?
Aye.
Ms. Scales Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye. Any other business from staff?
Workshop on the 14th, next Thursday.
Okay. Council members, our Christmas parade is scheduled for Sunday at 2 o'clock. And I don't want to be the Grinch, but I've been texting with, Ms. Scales Harris had mentioned this to me, but I've been texting with Nate. The weather does not look good at all on Sunday. So we're going to hope and pray that it holds out for the parade, but please keep, if you're watching this and you're going to come to the parade, please keep your eye on social media to be able to see if there's any announcements where we can't have the parade. I mean, look, we want to see everyone out there. We want to see all the dancers and floats, but the last thing we want to is to have bad weather and we put people in harm's way. So I know Laverne had to cancel their parade, I believe, last weekend, so we hope that's not the case. But please, our plan is to be able to have it continue, but please keep up with social media so that way you can see any announcements that come across. All right. Seeing no other business, we'll stand adjourned.